This is the second day of this June 1981 7-day session, and we will continue reading from the Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, the poem at the end of the chapter on Prajna. This particular sutra being translated by Paul and George Feng, translated from the Chinese, and it's an original publication of the Buddha's Universal Church, San Francisco in California. The Sixth Patriarch continues. If we search continuously for our own errors, we shall be in unity with the Dharma. This translation says, if we search continuously for our own errors, we shall be in unity with the Dharma. One can also say, if there's awareness of one's own errors, then in that awareness there's unity with the Dharma. Not in the errors, but in the awareness of them. Notice he does not say, as so many traditionalists say, get rid of all your errors and you'll be in unity with the Dharma. But search them, search into them, investigate them, see them, be awake to them. So they lose their power over you. And this wakefulness, in which judgment has no place, there is no duality. In judgment there is duality. There's the judge and what he or she judges. And in duality there's conflict, not unity. Yet to see an error, and to see that it is an error, that it was an error, the falseness of one's action, the danger of one's action, the consequences of that action, the painfulness of it. If that is seen, what judgment is needed? It speaks for itself. Can this daily life and this life on the mat, in or out of sesshin, be one movement of seeing, of awareness and wakefulness? Most of the time it is not. It is one movement of inattention. Can one awake to the fact that there was inattention and leave it at that? All creatures, Winang continues, all creatures have their own Dharma naturally. And each is not an obstruction to the other. If there's wakefulness and awareness, then there will be no obstruction to one another. Because one's own faults and errors are not projected onto others. They're seen here and they're seen there, clearly. In that there's no ground for hatred to arise. All creatures have their own dharma naturally. Can one discover this dharma? Within and without has no difference. This natural flow in which the me doesn't divide and cut up, always trying to eke out an existence. There's a beautiful poem by Layman Peng. This Chinese layman lived at the time of Baso, which was sometime in the Tang era, 7th or 8th century AD. It is said of him that he was quite wealthy, and he dumped all his gold into the river so it wouldn't make anybody else unhappy. And then with his family, had a wife and 2 children, they traveled, selling something or other, basket, woven things. This is what he says: in daily activities without discrimination. Here meaning like or dislike, clinging or rejecting. In daily activities without discrimination, I alone naturally harmonize. I wonder what he said in Chinese, because if I remember correctly, the Chinese don't even have a character for I. It's expressed differently, that first tense. But I alone is all one. I in no opposition to anyone. No I there to be opposed to anyone. That's natural harmonizing. Not grasping or rejecting anywhere. Not going with or going against. In going with, there can be great satisfaction, a satisfaction of belonging, of agreeing and being agreed with. And in going against, there can be tremendous satisfaction, becoming somebody by going against somebody. Of course, one at that position also wants to have a few allies who go against with one, against the others. Not going with or going against. Free. Free to see what opposition is all about, where it comes from. From this island of self. Three billion islands of self, banded together in larger complexes of islands, but still against other complexes of islands. Not going with, not going against. Who considers crimson and purple to be honorable? Crimson and purple, of course, being royal robes, either in the worldly realm or in the church realm, the religious realm. Always somehow other robes crop up. Beautiful colors, crimson, red, purple. little bit of gold glittering on the rims. Hats. Who considers crimson and purple to be honorable? To observe sometimes, if one is present in a show of crimson and purple, does the heart beat a little faster? Little goose pimples on the skin? We're all conditioned to that since time immemorial. The rooster is already doing it, parading their colors. The birds, the cardinals, particularly the males, but not always. This does not mean one is against males. But the power of color, when it is put on a human body, there's not a speck of dust in the mountains, not a speck of dust in the mountains. Spiritual powers and wondrous functioning, hauling water and carrying firewood. How does one haul water? How does one carry a load? I've been told by someone who visited India that young women, undernourished, were seen coming down a steep, rocky, dry mountain path, barefoot, with a huge load of firewood on their head, walking as though not walking, and singing with a grace that defied description. One meal a day, and carrying firewood daily, unless there's some time out for children, for bearing children. Huineng continues, but if the people neglect their inward dharma and seek it elsewhere, they will go through their entire lives without realizing the dharma. One hears this time and time and time again, yet every once in a while there is a realization of what this means, seeking it elsewhere. It means not to want to get rid of one's present state of mind or body, but allowing that body-mind to question mo or who as it is and as it changes, without clinging to good feelings or sad feelings. Not waiting for the good, powerful state of mind to arrive. It will never arrive. One can manufacture it temporarily, but always fizzles out. Can one question right in the fizzling? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with anything, except we think so. And that causes heartache, stomach ache, and tension all over the body. And then the tension is regretted or worried about, which causes more tension. Moo or hoo, in the midst of that. Not knowing. If we allow our lifetime to go by like the waves, aimlessly, in the end we will have nothing but self-reproach. Aimlessly here, not meaning without selfish motive, without selfish goals. It rather means drifting as one is pushed this way or that way. As one is persuaded, convinced, convicted, or influenced one way or the other, drifting from one thing to another. Drifting is not the opposite of not wanting. In not wanting, there's great attention and great intensity. It is the intensity of this whole momentum of wanting which goes into the questioning of wanting. If we want to attain the realization of the genuine Dharma, virtuous practice will lead us directly to it. Will it lead us? Or is this practice the realization of the Dharma itself? It is the whole teaching, or a great part of the teaching of Dogen. The sitting, in the sitting itself, there's the realization, which can be misunderstood. The sitting can be all kinds of sitting. Sitting mechanically. Mechanicalness always means away from something that's uncomfortable, discomforting, or disturbing. But this open sitting in the midst of disturbance and dis-ease and discomfort, not wanting, not expecting, not fearing. Is that the Dharma? The unfolding of the Dharma? Dharma meaning the truth of oneself, as one is from moment to moment, beyond all judgment, in the clarity of awareness. If we truly practice the Dharma, Wenang continues, if we truly practice the Dharma, we will not find fault anywhere. If we see the deficiencies of others, our criticisms are in themselves manifestations of our own faults. Others may be wrong, but we do not criticize. For if we criticize, we are already at fault. We have only to be rid of our censorious minds to start abolishing our defilements and anxieties. This, in different translations, is quite well known here. One translation that has often been used is, when others are wrong, I have transgressed. When I'm wrong, I alone am responsible. What is talked about here is this favorite activity of human beings, to talk about the mistakes of others. Not that there isn't a place for seeing error and danger in everyone's actions, and to point it out factually. But the question, as in every activity, in every single activity, must always be, am I getting something out of it for myself here? A sense of otherness, superiority. I'm not participating in that. Is that true? Is this really so? It's never a question of what one does, but does one understand why one does it? Are there motives, and what are they? I want to know them. I don't want to act blindly and then kid myself about my altruism or whatever. I don't want to deceive myself, and I don't want to deceive others. Therefore, I must look all the time. No matter how worthy the action in the eyes of others, or in the eyes of tradition, or in the eyes of I don't know who. These censorious minds, this pleasure one gets out of discussing other people's faults, it must also be seen, come into awareness. Is one factually discussing, or does it do something for one? And no one can say, I can't see that. You can if you want to. You need to. For that there must be no idea about oneself, that one is not like that. Then one will not see. Instead of saying we have only to be rid of our censorious minds to start abolishing our defilements and anxieties, can one say, if there's awareness of this censorious mind, will defilements and anxieties drop off on their own? Not to make any precluded statement, but to always question if this is so. If you say, well, because he says, and he was a pretty eminent master, it must be so, then you already start deluding yourself about yourself. The potential is there. Because it's our favorite occupation to delude ourselves. Since it comes up so often, let's read again these incredible last instructions by Milarepa to his disciples. Milarepa, that Tibetan sage who was asked by his teacher to live in mountain caves high up in the Himalayas, not to come back to the villages, which resulted in the fact that villagers came up to him. Milarepa did not live in isolation. There were hundreds of people listening to him. And there was an incredible liveliness to this man and sense of humor. And ecstasy, not romanticism, but the joy of freedom. Freedom even from clothing on those sheets of ice. Except for the loincloth, although for a time he wasn't even wearing this. And his sister, she saw him one day, and she was very shocked. She brought him some blanket material to cover up you know what. So Milarepa used this blanket material and made little cups for each of his fingers. Saying, if this has to be covered up, this has also to be covered up. It's one of his 100,000 songs or stories. The disciples then inquired if they could engage in worldly duties in a small way for the benefit of others. And Jetsun, that's another word, other name for Milarepa, said, if there's not the least self-interest attached to such duties, it is permissible. It's really not that it's forbidden. Let each one with open eyes find out for himself or herself in the way that was described. So one doesn't think one must follow the teacher, or one must react to the teacher. None of that. Find out for yourself how one works and what the motives are, if there are any. If there be not the least self-interest attached to such duties, it is permissible. But such detachment is indeed rare, and the works performed for the good of others seldom succeed, if not wholly freed from self-interest. Even without seeking to benefit others, it is with difficulty that works done even in one's own interest are successful. It is as if a man helplessly drowning were to save another man in the same predicament. One should not be over-anxious and hasty in setting out to serve others before one has oneself realized truth in its fullness. To be so would be like the blind leading the blind. As long as the sky endureth, so long will there be no end of sentient beings for one to serve. And to everyone cometh the opportunity for such service. Till the opportunity come, I exhort each of you to have but the one resolve, namely, to attain Buddhahood for the good of all living beings. Which, please, must not be understood or misunderstood to put down one's daily work. One is a teacher, a social worker, or whatever activity one engages in, political, social, or otherwise. But can there be clarity clear, intelligent observation. Unemotional. Unreactionary. When the mind, Wenang continues, when the mind is no longer concerned with likes and dislikes, then it can be at ease, as if we were asleep with our legs fully stretched. And the mind is no longer concerned with likes and dislikes. Here, right here. I don't like this sick stomach, but it's there. Move. Oh. If we want to be able to help others, we must ourselves have the open-minded helpfulness. The open-minded helpfulness has a footnote here. Let's see what it said. The Chinese is used as such and such skillful or adept method, as opportune or appropriate use. The complete term is interpreted as the appropriate use of skillful methods suitable to the particular circumstances in which one is helping others. Suitable, which means one must really take some time out before one rushes in helping others. Does one understand these others? Does one understand their predicament, their situation? I recently read a pamphlet. It's called Exploding the Hunger Myth, or Myths, written by the author of Food for a Small Planet. Lap is the name. Pointing out the amazing, to many people amazing fact that there is in every country enough food, enough possibility for raising food to nourish all people. That there's much more food in storage in these countries than is being distributed. Why? Does one understand the situation? Before one just pours money, food, things in there that, according to our conditioning, we would like to have. What do these people need? And there are people who go directly, often not associated with any organization whatsoever. Individual human beings go someplace, some little unknown island in the Philippines, working with little families there who are undernourished, half-starved, trying to help them raise some nourishing food. Work together. First of all, by acquainting oneself, becoming intimate with these people. All we know is our own conditioning. And out of that, we judge and project what other people need. One must be right there to find out. Love and understanding is what everybody needs. And is that there in full abundance as one works for others? If that is not there, how can there be help? Wei Nang continues, in order not to allow others to harbor doubts, our own self-nature must be absolutely clear of them. Can one dispel other people's doubts through one's own doubts? Or is this just adding confusion upon confusion? One can sit together and open up these doubts, be familiar with them together, point them out. Wei Nang continues, the Dharma of Buddhism is used in the midst of our usual life, and thus is not separate from our usual consciousness. Usual here means is used in the same way as what Nansen used it when he answered Joshua's question, what is the way? By saying, ordinary mind, that is the way. Or what Wei Nang earlier said, all creatures have their own Dharma naturally, this ordinary way, not distorted. Through the tinted glasses of self, which is thinking. The Dharma of Buddhism is used in the midst of our ordinary life, and thus is not separate from our ordinary consciousness. To seek for wisdom by shedding one's personal responsibilities is to be seeking for the horns of a rabbit. To seek for wisdom or love by shedding one's personal responsibilities is to be seeking for the horns of a rabbit. Do you know what the horn of a rabbit is? I don't know. Never seen one. Virtuous views are the liberating ones. Biased views tether us to this world. Virtuous views, again, not meaning some idea of virtue, but the view being whole, wholesome, holy. The whole thing, oneself not cut up to one's personal predilections and aversions. Biased views tether us to this world, and yet with biased views we want to either help this world or sever our tethers from the world. Always the little me there. Can the me become whole? Or is there wholeness when there's no me? Can the me be seen coming up out of the wholeness of no judgment? When we have entirely abolished the biased views and also purified the virtuous ones, then the wisdom of the self-nature will fully appear. But it's not a matter of entirely abolishing and Huineng doesn't mean that. It means when they're seen for what they are, and they lose their power, their grip, their drive, their unconsciousness. Unconsciousness is inattention. It is as simple as that. Can there be an attention irradiating both the conscious and the unconscious mind? We don't know. Mo. Hu. Not knowing, yet not rejecting and not clinging, and not judging. All the breathing, the inhaling and the exhaling. Not knowing what one inhalation is because one does not know. Yet one is doing it. Can there be attending? In attending there is also the word tender. Undivided. This poem, Huineng says, is of the sudden school and is also called the Great Dharma Ship. You may have heard this thing going on there in the monastery of the fifth patriarch, whether awakening is sudden or gradual. Gradual meaning grinding away at practice and little by little, cleaning the mirror. This dust is gone, this speck of dust is gone, and that is gone, and while one's wiping there's new dust. Or Huineng's understanding. There is no mind. Where is the dust to settle? The sudden school here meaning understanding, realization is always instantaneously. It is on the instant, it's on the moment, immediate and direct, and that there's no time. Gradualness is an idea, and that there's lots of time. Time for postponement, time for impatience, mu or hu or in the breathing, can there be no time? No idea of time, not creating a future or lingering in the memory of the past. No time, mu, not knowing. Where is there room for time? Time is thinking. One person said, in this sesshin, can there be no concern about 35 minutes and 7 minutes and this and that? Just move. whether the legs drop off or not. A heart stands still or not. It will not, but it may. I don't know. Mine may stand still. I don't know. Who knows? It may pound like crazy. Intestines may churn like nuts. Whoo, whoo. Right there. What is outside us? Can there be no fear whatsoever? Which simply means, can there be no running away whatsoever? Because fear is running. What one is afraid of, one doesn't know, because one has never faced it. One has only thought about it, and that arouses all kinds of fears. Dying is what one is afraid of, but it's the idea of dying. One has never died or has one. In dying there is no knowing. And there's a renewing. Rebirth, not at the end of this lifetime, but maybe right now. From moment to moment, rebirth. And one doesn't have to wreck one's brain what rebirth means in the next life. Or read up what others have said about it. Can it happen in this life? But not to think about it or expect it, then maybe I shouldn't even have said anything about it. Wei Nang concludes, the deluded ones may have listened many times to the sutras, but this will not rid them of the multitudinous hindrances. However, in awakening to Bodhi wisdom, they're instantly in accord with the Dharma. You may remember this little poem once quoted. When the Dharma king's Dharma, that's the Buddha's Dharma, Buddha being the Dharma king. When the Dharma king's Dharma is understood, the Dharma king's Dharma is just like this. What is it? We'll stop here for today. In reciting the 4 vows, can there be this flow of rhythm, not stopping, especially before one word, but flowing in rhythm?
The 4 vows. All things without number.